Oh my goodness. Thursday night. Once again, welcome to Star Wars News Net Live. My name is Tyler, joined by Brian and Jay for another wonderful edition of our favorite Thursday night Star Wars sesh. Guys, the mission is over. The mission has been completed. The batch will forever ride off into the sunset. What a week in Star Wars it has been. We saw the end of a series. We have the 25th anniversary of a movie. It's the 10-year anniversary of a cast for a new movie being announced. We got Tales of the Empire coming out in 2 days. They're dropping soundtracks for shows. They have new clips coming out for the animated series coming out on Saturday. All of that to say, there is just a little bit of juicy information for us to talk about this week. The only, there's a sad thing, though, that's going on. So I did end up making a bet. For those of you who were listening, I did end up making a bet with one of our listeners over this episode. And the bet was over whether Crosshair or Hunter would die. And I think we were both like, oh, it's like,
both lost.
Safe. We both lost. Like it was nothing happened. So we're okay with that. I'm okay with that personally because I wanted everyone to be happy. But we're gonna talk about this. First of all, couple questions. Brian, question for you.
Okay.
If you're in the Star Wars universe, what planets do you think would have the best product for you to help maintain your luscious beard?
Oh Lord, that's a great question. Probably Naboo.
Okay.
Because Governor Sio Bibble had a beautiful beard. He was doing something. He had something for that. Coruscant, obviously. We probably have
Coruscant,
some good
for sure.
Yeah,
Naboo's probably got like the natural stuff. Coruscant's probably importing that bringing that in.
It's wherever Rancis Opal goes because he's got that one that's like he's got the Grand Wizard, right? So
this is true. And Jay, you're a video game guy. Where are the best video game? What planet am I going to for the best video game expansion? Best video game immersive activity? I don't know. Something game related.
I'd probably go Nar Shaddaa. They probably have the illegal stuff and the stuff that they can just take in from the other
contraband.
The good stuff in the back.
Yeah.
Contraband. That's like what does that even mean? The illegal games. Like what does that mean? Like there's more violence, there's more immersion.
Probably just like the stuff that it's probably banned in other planets.
Rebel propaganda, Rogue Squadron 3. You can't play that on Coruscant during the time of the Empire, guys. Sorry, you can't do it.
Empire's probably just banning GTA 5 or GTA 6 or whatever the next future GTA game is gonna be. So you'd probably have to go to Nar Shaddaa for that.
So Star Wars Celebration tickets are coming on sale this week. Sale. Obviously, it's in Japan, long ways away. Any chance that either one of you are going to be able to make it, or is it more of a probably sit this one out, hope that you can go to the next one if it's like a U.S.? Because I'm sure they'll come back to the U.S. for the next one. But any chance you guys are going to be able to make it for this one?
Nope.
I'd love to go. To go. I mean, the thing is, what's funny is I'm in Hawaii, so
right.
Japan is probably it for me. Living in Hawaii, the closest places I could go are west coast of US or Japan.
Right.
And then so for me, I'm like, I really wanted to go, but financially wise, no way.
I really would want to. So this is breaking news on the live show for you guys, but it would be difficult for me to afford Japan plane tickets in the same year.
Oh, yeah.
Because you gotta buy them probably soon in advance, right? You gotta purchase.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be difficult for me to purchase all these things in the same year.
Out, you would, but
hold on. I got this is an announcement.
No.
In the same year that I have purchased an engagement ring.
Yeah.
For my
girl.
Whoa!
It's a trap. It's a trap. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh my God! What are you thinking?
She's in my very soul. Tormented.
God.
What is it called?
Jesus Christ. What are you doing?
First thing
what
I'm
are
say
you
is,
doing?
Ryan, do we need to get your wife down here right now?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
straighten you
I
out.
tell her the same thing I'm telling you guys. Why did I do this? I don't know what the heck. I was coaxed. I was drugged or something. No, like with the celebration thing though, I'm kind of glad that I'm sitting this one out because if the next one's stateside, the next one is going to be where we start getting some stuff about the Mando movie coming out and everything. So I'm kind of fingers crossed. I've never been to a celebration. I'd love to go, and I'm hoping that next year's is the one that's gonna, excuse my language, but pop the proverbial cherry of going to celebration for me. So
I've never been. I hope that they do. It's gonna be interesting because I have a hard time seeing them not doing a celebration the year that a new Star Wars movie comes out. So 2026, but they usually don't go back-to-back years.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it'd be weird if there was the first Star Wars movie to come out in 7, 8 years or whatever, and then not have a celebration for it, especially when they usually do these celebrations around April, May. This movie's supposed to come out around in May, so it would be weird. At the same time, though, they have to do one in 2027, and it's gonna probably have to be in Anaheim, and it's the 50-year anniversary of Star Wars. This is going to be the celebration of celebrations. Like, that's the one where you have to do a celebration. You have to go to the celebration. If you're not at this one, this is going to be the who's who of Star Wars is going to be there, and every person is going to be fighting for those tickets. Like, I know that I have to be at this. Like, I will be.
You're going to take the day off work just to get the tickets online. Yeah.
Oh, a day. I'll take a week off work to get the tickets online to make sure I got the perfect setup, whatever it is. Man. I'm going to start banking up those days off now, so that way we can get ready to go. Manslayer, we see you. Thanks for being in the chat. I had the opportunity to talk to him over the weekend, and we got to know each other a little bit. And as we made our bets, I told everybody about our bets and how it did not come to fruition. Thankfully. Also, so celebration tickets are on sale. Something else real quick. Rebels season 3 and 4 soundtracks dropping for the public. That's pretty cool. Thought that was a little neat. Are you guys going to maybe give those a listen for old time's sake?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Put that on in the background. So good. Love Rebels is so, at the same time, it's like underrated, but also properly rated, because I think so many people now are saying that it's underrated that it's become properly like
starting to be discovered a little bit. Yeah. It's like everything with Star Wars, it usually ages like fine wine. Like, the longer it's out, the more it grows on everybody. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. 100%. Stephen Knight, who is writing the Daisy Ridley movie, publicly confirmed that he is writing it. He could say it is. He's doing well. Miguel and I have been talking, and I'll mention this briefly. We've been talking about doing a show soon, just a pre-recorded show where we dive into all of what we know about the movie scope of Star Wars right now, because it can be really confusing. Like, who's writing the script for this? Is this movie actually happening? Well, when is production going to go into place for these different things? So we're gonna have a show where we talk about a lot of this. But what did you guys think about that? It's not much, but just knowing that, hey, the script is pretty much like done. How does that feel?
To me, it's not news to me personally, just because Daisy Ridley, already came out and she's like, next month I'm sitting down with the script.
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah, we already know about it. But how many other Star Wars movies have we had so far that got axed? Exactly. Where they were like, at this point, and they're like, we're doing it, we're going, and then they're just like, psych, like, we're not doing it.
I don't think many.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I don't think many have gotten to this point to where the writers are publicly saying, yeah, the script's like done.
Taika Waititi is done with like 2/3 of his. He just can't figure out the freaking middle.
Says who?
And it's
says
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi says things out of his ass all the time.
But that's no different. Well, that's true. But that's no different than Stephen Knight saying, hey, I'm working on it. Like,
no, I think it is incredibly different. Because he's saying, like, I've done this, I've given it to people, and I, like Daisy has said, like, I'm going to receive, like, this is like, we have, for none of those other movies, we haven't had like a lead actor, like the writer and a director, like all saying that they're saying the same thing, versus like with the others, it's this person's saying this person's saying nothing, and this person's off in Neverland doing like whatever.
Right.
Oh, so the engagement means like, so propose at she doesn't know when. We're not going to reveal any of this information, on air.
Show then.
She knows that, like we've talked, like she knows the ring
okay.
is being manufactured. Like she's aware of this process. She's.
I don't know what you're doing, man.
Brian,
think it through.
What is your
think
problem?
it through. Think it through. I've been there for 12 years. Think it through. Like, just saying.
Brian's like, who's? I'm trying to think of someone in Star Wars that's like Brian right now. I can't think. Jay, who's someone like Brian right now?
I'm not sure.
We'll come back to it. So this is just fun, real quick, before we get into that match. 10 years ago this week, the cast of Force Awakens was announced.
Oh,
that's pretty cool. And obviously, we're getting close to the 10-year like anniversary of the movie because
that was like half y'all's lives ago.
Okay. I'm not 20 years old. I am 27 years old.
I know, it's like close.
I'm a young, but like close. We're closer to the other side of a different decade. Like, are we really close here? Is a 7-year-old and a 1-month-year-old really close in age? Like, you would look at those two beings and go, "Oh, they're about the same age." One can go to the bathroom by themselves. One can't.
Well, it's all relative.
It is, yeah.
And then, the Phantom Menace 25-year anniversary. That's closer to that's like my lifetime ago, 25-year anniversary. We've talked about this. I haven't bought my tickets yet. I think I'm gonna go tomorrow. I think I'm gonna go tomorrow night. I might go Saturday, like mid-afternoon. We'll see. But I think right now the plan is tomorrow night. Brian, have you bought your tickets to go fall asleep yet?
Nope. No,
okay,
I have not.
We know you fall asleep when you see Phantom in theater.
The thing is, I'm sticking by my guns, man. I'm sticking by you guys can go watch it in the theaters, pay $20-$30 to go watch it in theaters. I'll stay home watch it on Disney Plus.
You live in Kansas. What movie theater you spending $30?
I gotta drive an hour just to get to a movie theater.
You're acting like you're like living in New York City where your ticket might cost $27.
AMC here is like, it's nuts, dude. We had one that I used to go to, Old Town. It was a Warren theater. They closed it down though, and it sucked because it was the kind of theater you could go in and sit down and push the little red button on your seat, and they'd bring you a menu and a table, and you could actually get food really cool. and so yeah, I freaking loved it. And they closed it, best theater ever. But yeah, no, I'll just stay home and sit in my underwear and watch it on my TV. And
that's a wonderful image.
And then watch. You're welcome. And then I'll watch the Acolyte thing when it releases next week on YouTube.
Is it really like an hour away, the closest theater to you?
Yeah, I'm an hour from Wichita. I can either go an hour to Wichita or I can go an hour down in Oklahoma to Enid, which is the next closest big town. But yeah, that's the closest movie theater that I've got. So usually when we do the big movie nights, like when Ghostbusters came out last month, or back in March when we went and saw that, I took the whole day off work and we just went to Wichita and made a day of it. So
okay, that's fun. I was gonna say, if you don't want to pay like that much, like I know AMC, it's like $20 a month. You do the A-list and you get 3 movies a week. Like it's 3 a week, and then you get discounts like for the concessions and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I used to do the A-list. It's a little bit of a drive. So I got Movie Pass now. But my girlfriend, if you buy a ticket, if you're an A-list member and you buy a ticket for someone, you get like 5 times the points. Yeah. So like I bought like 2 movie tickets for her, like back to back, because we were going with some friends. And those points paid for like her next movie and like both of us to get basically like a full-on meal at the theater too. Yeah. So if you live closer, I would say like that would be worth it. Jay, do you have a theater close to you?
Well, everything is pretty close.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's true. But like, I mean, like, you're not like driving to the other side of the island for the theater, right?
Yeah. It's about like 15-20 minutes.
Where's the legitimate question?
That was funny.
Yeah.
He's like, everything's close here. He's like, I can throw a rock and hit anything. Like,
well, like, how many movie theaters per island in Hawaii are there? Would you say?
Oh,
that's
per island.
I'm curious about that too. Yeah.
No. So I live on Oahu. And like this, Oahu is the most populous island. And so there's like, I don't know, maybe about 8 theaters across Oahu. But if you go to like maybe somewhere in the Big Island, the island of Hawaii, or like Maui or Molokai, might be like little bit tougher because not many people live there. But
there's no theaters on this one, so like Jay's like he's swimming across back to he's like swimming so he can get his AMC. So he's getting like a 3
He's outrunning a shark. He's like, there's always a bigger fish. There's always a bigger fish.
He's like swimming past jacked fish in order to get to his Phantom Menace premiere. That's incredible.
Exactly how it is. Yeah,
you should record the whole thing. That you're living your own Star Wars.
Uno bongo.
Also, now that you've made your happy announcement, Mansair goes, Viceroy, I don't want this stunted slime in my sight again. So good. I love that movie so much. I can't wait. Star Wars Day is on Saturday, which means Tales of the Empire is dropping. Oof. I watched the latest clip that dropped like a day or two ago with Barriss Offee in the cell. And what did you guys watch the clip?
Yes.
Or okay.
I didn't see the latest one, but I saw the General Grievous one.
The General Grievous one's awesome. Did we know that the fourth sister's name was Lynn?
No.
Before? Was that something new that we're learning from this?
I don't think so, yeah.
I think that's new, yeah.
Because I didn't think we knew that. I thought that was interesting. And then she's in the cell, they look out. What did you think? Obviously, we don't know anything about what's gonna happen. But just from that little clip, what did you think? We got a lot of backstory for Lynn. We know she's a Jedi. We know she was a former Jedi. Because we know some of the Inquisitors were former Jedi, some aren't, but tell me just a little bit. What do you think about that?
I'm loving it because she's stuck in that cell. She's looking out the window. Everything. Does she even know the whole thing about the Jedi? Because when Lynn comes in and starts telling her, they tried to assassinate the Chancellor. She didn't feel any of that through the Force. You know what I mean? The same way Yoda. Obviously, Yoda's on a different level, but she didn't feel that disturbance or anything.
She probably felt something. She's locked away. She probably doesn't know what's going on.
Has no idea what's going on.
What does this maybe what does this mean? Because she goes, what does this mean for me?
Right.
And I wonder how quickly this is happening. That's what I want to know. I wonder how quickly is this it's been a few weeks. Is it happening right now? Palpatine just announced the order and now he's kind of Anakin has just finished infiltrating the temple, and a few of the Jedi have, turned said we're going to do this. I wonder how quickly this is happened.
Well, with Iskat and Rise of the Red Blade, it was a week and a half, something like that, and she was already on her way to the Inquisitorius, and so something like that. Because I know Order 66 happened with her, and then they, Palpatine himself buzzed in and was like, we're going to give you this option to do this instead. And so they put her on the ship and took her back to Coruscant. They left her in a cell for a long time. Actually, it was a month, something like that.
Right.
Then they took her somewhere else and they put her in another cell for a month. And so then the Grand Inquisitor came to her and was like, hey, this is what's going on. So I'm wondering if it's been a couple months at this point.
Jay, are you hoping we see
they've had time to establish everything?
If it's been a couple months, it makes sense. It'd be really good. Jay, are you hoping we see a scout from Rise of the Red Blade?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
do you think there's a chance we will, or
I don't think so. Frankly, I mean, considering, I don't know, just in the current timeline of Disney, it very rarely includes stuff from the books. So I'm not getting my hopes up. I'd like to even just see a brief scene of her dueling someone, dueling another Inquisitor.
Okay.
Whether or not she's gonna appear, though, I'm not keeping my hopes up.
So, question: you guys have both. Merrick. That was.
Oh yeah,
Merrick is in there. That's cool.
Merrick. You guys have both read the book. I haven't read Rise of the Red Blade, so,
so
how descriptive is her Inquisitor uniform, outfit, or whatever, to where if we were watching, if you were watching it and she wasn't named, Jay says she's fighting,
you'd be able to spot her.
Would you be able to spot her?
She's got red skin. She's got red skin and jet black hair and really, really long fingers. So, so you would be able to spot her. I mean, it'd be no different than seeing Thrawn walk on scene. You know what I mean? So yeah, she would be instantly recognizable. Instantly.
Okay. I hope beyond hope for you guys that have read that book that they do drop that. And honestly, I'm hoping for it too. I haven't read the book, but I'm a big Star Wars book guy. So anytime we get little nods like that, it does feel good for the book audience, And I know Jay wrote the review on Star Wars Newsnet for that book and he's talked very highly of it. So gonna probably be a while before I get to it, but I'm hoping this summer like to catch up on a few books like that one and like Living Force and a couple that I haven't got to yet. So Star Wars Day is Saturday. Do you guys think that anything will be dropped for Disney by or Lucasfilm for this? I told Brian right before we started, I said I don't think they're gonna do anything. I think Tales of the Empire is the big deal, and then these new toys, and then Phantom Menace is back in theaters. Like they don't need to do anything. This is perfect, like what we have. Jay, what do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think that what they have right now is perfect. There's no need to really announce anything. If they do decide to announce something, I put my money on Skeleton Crew.
Just like maybe doing like some sort of like release date for that, or like
I think a trailer,
like an update on just this is what's happening. Or
I'd like a trailer, but like I don't think that's gonna happen, and I think that like Acolyte is probably the big focus. But well, because that's another thing that's also like supposed to come out this year.
Yeah, it's supposed to, but we don't know when. It's
right.
Not as soon as October, or they might be even December into January. And I don't think we're gonna get anything trailer wise until after Acolyte's over. Like I don't think. Like I think we're gonna have to wait till July 14th, 15th. I think like July like 16th is the finale for Acolyte. So maybe like early August we'll get something. Maybe it might be like D23 is in August. Maybe they drop the trailer like D23 for subscribers, things like that.
Oh yeah.
I think that might be what we're looking at here.
I think if they drop anything, it's going to be almost exactly a month out from Acolyte. New trailer for Acolyte.
But that's with the Phantom Menace. They tied the Phantom Menace reveal, like going at the end. Like I don't think they would drop.
You don't think they'll drop another trailer?
Because why? You're trying to hype people to go see Phantom Menace because it's the 25-year anniversary.
Right.
But you're also incentivizing people to do that by saying you're going to get a look at this.
But it's like a special look at thing, isn't it? And it just like a behind the scenes kind of.
I think it's going to be similar to what Dune did for Dune Part 2, because they said like a special look, and it was like a mix of talking with the cast for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then there was like a 4 or 5 minute scene from the movie. I think it's going to be like a
something
mix
like
of that, and I don't think they would drop a trailer at the same time, because then people are going to be like, if they're on the fence about seeing Phantom Menace and they were only thinking about going because it's like, well, I'll go and then I'll see the Acolyte, they might be like, well, I don't need to see that because I'll at least have this trailer for free. I think so. May 4th, this weekend, give it like another week and a half.
Yeah.
Like, where we're like 2.5, 3 weeks out. And then boom, I think you're going to get like a 2-minute trailer with Yoda showing up. That's my best guess, but we'll see. We'll see.
Nice.
Oh, it was leaked. Oh man, don't tell me that it was leaked. It's a scene. It was leaked. The one in the bar with Carrie and Moss, and then the trailer that we saw. Okay, if they show me the same exact trailer, I'm pissed.
Yeah, you guys go watch your Phantom Menace in the theater.
But I like Phantom Menace.
Do it.
I'm going this weekend regardless of Acolyte stuff or not. Like I love Phantom Menace, so I just want to see Duel of the Fates and pod racing on the big screen. But I will be pissed if they just show the exact same trailer.
You know what? Part of me wants to go this weekend now just so I can see how pissed off Tyler's going to be next week. Like, I just want to know going into it.
I'll text you tomorrow night.
It's almost worth it.
If it goes poorly, if it's like the same, I'll be like, you stupid thing.
It's going to be worth the drive. It's going to be so great.
Funny
oh,
enough.
my God.
So I have a funny story that kind of ties to that. So I'm like a big Final Fantasy fan. I have like a figure of Cloud Strife here from Final Fantasy 7. But I went to the special re-release of Final Fantasy 7 Advent Children, the movie, which is like continuation of the game, in theaters just this year. And when I bought the ticket, it was saying like get a special look at the upcoming game. Coming out as well, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. When I got in the theater, the special look of the game was just footage of the game demo that people had already been playing prior to even the movie. Like,
I love
prior
it.
to that. So like literally, like I'm in the theater and they go like a special look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the game that's gonna come out in like a few weeks, and then they show footage of the demo, which people had already been playing, and then I tell you not, the audience dead silent, all of the air in the room
quiet
just
rage.
it just like was completely dead silent, and people were like, so you could tell like they're in their seats and they're just seething. I was seething, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like people who were there watching that movie, you know, had already been playing that demo for sure for like weeks, and yet
it's got to be like when they announced that Diablo game that was going to be on mobile, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, we can remember that." And they're like, "It's all mobile, but we can play it on." No, it's mobile. That's great. Oh my god.
Oh man. Well, now that Jay's fury has been taken out, and we know what's not going to happen because Lucasfilm's not going to do this to us. Let's talk about it, guys. We saw the end of an era this week. We saw the end of an era a couple days ago. And that is the Bad Batch, and really this whole cloning, clone stuff that started all the way back in 2002 with Attack of the Clones. I mean, this has been a 22-year journey with clones that started in theaters. Attack of the Clones. We had the Clone Wars micro series. We've had the Clone Wars, 6 seasons, and then the hiatus, the return for season 7, and then back with the Bad Batch. We had even some clone stuff mixed in Rebels with Rex and Gregor and Wolf being there for the latter, half of some of that show. And honestly, the Bad Batch ending, like it felt bigger than just a 3-season like animated show that has been, just solid. It really did feel like this end of an era, like took me back to these different journeys we've had with all the different clones. And there's been so much, and I was so happy that we got a happy ending for this set of clones, because you guys know how many clones have just been thrown to the dust and by the Empire, by the Republic, and have died during the Clone Wars. And not that the Bad Batch represent every single clone, but it felt like the clones as a whole got a happy ending because we've been following this specific group for so long. And I don't know about you guys, we're going to break down every part of this finale. But for me, I've said this many times, Star Wars, I feel like almost always sticks the landing with these shows. In the Bad Batch, I think it kind of lost itself a little bit along the way in season 3, season 2, season 1, same thing. Stuck the landing. There were things that could be improved upon this. But when I get a series finale, it's less important to me about some of the technical aspects or like little plot points here and there. How do I feel like when I finish watching? And then like the next day, like hours later, how do I feel after I've processed it? And I have to say 10 out of 10 for me, just because I felt complete after watching this. Like I did not feel like I was missing out on anything. It made me feel like really good and hopeful, which is something we don't get oftentimes from these animated shows. I mean, Clone Wars, obviously we knew how that was going to end. Rebels ends on a hopeful note, but we watch Kanan sacrifice himself. We watch Ezra sacrifice himself and have to wait so long for that resolution. And so it felt really good from an animation standpoint. Even if we want to throw in Tales of the Jedi, like Yaddle dies, we watch Dooku's descent, like all of these things. It felt so great to watch like this family actually come out okay for the most part. And I'll just leave it at that. It made me feel like really wholesome. It was the kind of Star Wars I think that I needed right now. I think that everyone needed a little bit, especially because of some, the vitriol that exists and like some of the way Mando wasn't well received, or Andor was a very hopeful story, but it's very gritty, it's very different. We know how that is going to end too. And Acolyte's going to be probably a darker show because it's told from a villain perspective. And so this was a very it's made me feel so good that I really wanted to emphasize that. As much as I'm going to probably nitpick some things, and I know we are, to me, when the series ends, it's more about like, how do I feel, moving forward? And I feel great. I feel great. So Brian, what about you? What about you with the finale?
I thought it was a good finale. I was worried too going into it because, like we talked about last week, I didn't realize there was only one episode left. It didn't feel like to me that the last episode ended on like a to be concluded kind of moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, and when you guys said there was only one episode left, I was like, really? Are you kidding me? Because it still feels like the middle of the season.
Right.
But I think they stuck the landing on it. I don't know if I'd give it a 10. But it's high. I'm going to give it, it's going to be 8.5 or 9. It's going to be up there. I felt good at the end of it. I thought it was a really fun finale. I'm really glad that the people I wanted to get theirs in the end got theirs in the end. I was really happy about that.
You imagine if Hemlock survived? Oh my gosh,
there's no way. Dude, they took him down with extreme prejudice. Like they just kept shooting over and over and over and over and over. Like I was like, oh my god. But I like that scene too, and we can talk about it in a minute. But there was no music during that scene. It was all pure, just
right.
And so, but no, I thought it was a really good finale. I think it wrapped up everybody's stories really well. I feel like the only thing that I would kind of gripe about is, and I might get lynched for this. But Crosshair, I feel like there wasn't like a huge moment where he was able to prove to himself and to everybody else. I know he proved to everybody that he was back on the team, but there wasn't that big moment where, he tried to have that moment where he said, this is what I deserve. I'm going into the base alone. But he didn't have to. And, I don't feel like his arc, it had a satisfying end, but I feel like it could have been more centric on him at some point. Because, the last 2 seasons have been very heavily on him. And it was.
How so, though? I'm curious. What would.
I don't know. I really feel like he needed to make. I really feel like, and I hate to say this, because I know you really wanted him to have their right off into the sunset moment, and they got it. I really feel like he needed to go, though. I really feel like in order to drive home everything else that we've seen so far of him, with his remorse for leaving the team and trying to come back and trying to fit back in and everything, I feel like he really needed that moment to actually prove himself. Not for the guys. The guys can tell him all day long, we're part of the same team. But I think he needed that moment for him. That's when he was like, I'm going into the base alone. This is what I deserve. And there was never really a moment where I feel like that was resolved for him. You know what I mean? And Manslayer brings up a good point when he's taking out Hemlock. But I don't. I hear you.
I hear you.
I do too. Actually, I see where you're coming from. Brian.
I'm gonna throw this.
Change my mind.
But I want to talk about this. So Crosshair. Yes, he has the whole I deserve this. But here's why killing him off, and we see this in Star Wars sometimes, in other stories, that honestly is like the easy approach. Like that's the easy way to write him out. He has the redeeming thing. He sacrifices himself and everyone remembers him for his heroic acts. It's, I think, much more difficult to write an arc that gets him to where he needs to be and allows him to live with the actions that he's made while still forging a future for himself and having to know that, yes, I'm the man that I am now and I'm different than I was before, but just because I am now doesn't mean I won't slip back into that. I have to continue to make myself like better each day. But it's also a story that like I don't have to sacrifice myself in order to fully heal. And like he's fully healed, he gets to live with his brothers for good. And I think when he says like that's what I deserve, and I think that was the moment where he knows what that's going to happen. Like that he knows that he does deserve that maybe. But that's when Hunter and Wrecker are just like, and he's spurned them so many times in the past. And they say, not a chance. Don't even think about Plan 99. And I think that was the writers saying that like, we don't need to kill off Crosshair. He doesn't have to sacrifice himself because he's already sacrificed so much of himself and he's lost so much of himself. Like, let's let him have this moment. I think for him ultimately to lose his, shooting hand, which they cut away from that.
Well, yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
He loses his shooting hand. So he's going to have to live with that forever. But to ultimately make that killing shot with his left hand, but he has to, if you watch, like he has to lean on Hunter. Like Hunter puts his like hands out. And so he has to learn how to lean on his brothers too. And he knows that he can't do it all himself. He he can't just put that burden on himself. It's not his to choose that, because there's other people that care about him and need him. And that's why Hunter says too, like, Omega needs all of us. And he's not talking about just right then. He's talking about tomorrow,
beyond,
next year, beyond. Like,
okay.
And that's kind of, I just think I heard a lot of people say that it was the safe thing for them all to live. I actually disagree with that, because we're sitting here talking about who should have died. And on Star Wars Newsnet, we put a poll out, who's going to die tomorrow? Like, everyone was expecting someone to get to die. That writing a story where they actually all live and it work and everyone have their arcs, I think was more challenging in this instance, because we were maybe thinking that someone was going to die, and it almost subverted expectation by having everyone live. So, Jay, I'm going to throw all of this onto your plate now. It's like Thanksgiving here in America. For here in America on Thanksgiving, when we just stuff our plates and it's just mountain, like so that's why I feel like the plate that we just gave you is just overflowing right now. Please, eliminate some of the excess protein from your palate here.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out though to our reviewer Josh Atkins, who actually did say in his review like that he did feel it was safe. And I totally
Josh wrote a great review. He wrote a great review.
Oh yeah,
it's phenomenal. I wasn't taking a shot at Josh. I promise.
No. I totally agree with you, and I agree that the thing is, I think that I see from both angles where you guys are saying, and I see what you're saying too, Brian, where it feels like maybe like the arc didn't go into its natural resolution. And I get that. But I also think, and I do agree with what Tyler was saying near the end, and you kind of actually took the words right out of my mouth, which was that it subverted expectations in the best way possible. Because like you said, we're all thinking someone's going to die, someone's going to make the ultimate sacrifice. But it actually gave us something better by not going in that natural resolution, in my opinion. Because like you said, now there's a challenge of, now that we're alive, like, what do we do now? And that's always like a big, that's kind of like a very potent theme for any, war veteran.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think it did stick the landing. And I do think that I see why people think it could have been like a safe, resolution of safe ending. But I'm totally fine with that. Because again, it did subvert expectations, and in a way that the actual result we got was better, in my opinion.
It's safe. I think too, something I have a problem with. I think sometimes people correlate like safe with having like a negative connotation in shows or movies. And I'm like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a negative like thing. It could be like, it's sometimes more difficult to go the safe route and make it satisfying for everyone, because it's for instance, I think that's why, let's take Rise of Skywalker, for instance, when like Ben Solo makes the ultimate sacrifice to bring Rey back and dies. I think that was a much easier way of writing that character off, because it's like, oh, hands clean. Exactly. Versus if he had lived, and writing a story where he lives and has to both live with his redeemed self, but also what he's done, and reconcile that with the people around him and figure out what's next. I think in Star Wars, we've become so conditioned, like someone's going to get lost here. We're going to lose someone along the way. Right. And to have a story where everyone makes it out, it says something when we're all expecting someone 100% to die. And
here's the thing too, which is that I think that going off of like what you're saying is like having a character live in Star Wars. I think having a character live in Star Wars, especially like
I saw that too.
I'm not crazy. Okay. I making
saw
sure.
That. I was like,
I missed it. What was it?
There were like balloons going like on your screen.
What?
Like there were like balloons.
I don't know what happened.
I'm like, it's reminded me of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal when they do like LSD right before they go off, and they just have this like
Like it was just
major
like balloon
trip.
effects, like
Yeah.
on my
And-
screen.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
they
I
were
there was no one
around
else.
you.
and I was looking, and I was like, I don't want to be the one to say it, and I just saw Brian's face too, and I'm like, I know that he saw it too, and
I
I'm
thought
glad.
I was thinking, man, I know I'm tired, but I'm like, I know I'm not that tired, and I'm like, I know I'm not to
The
the point
best
where I'm
part was
hallucinating
Jay
already.
looked down for a moment, and
Yeah,
when
he wasn't
looked
even
up,
looking.
it was gone. So it's
Wow, it was like right in the middle of my thought too. Anyways,
Sorry.
okay, so it was only like
I
it
couldn't
was
let
only
it
on
go.
my screen then, only in my
what,
block.
what a turn of events.
I couldn't let it go. Sorry.
It's
No,
it's
it's all
one of
good.
those. Oh, that was wild.
Okay, back to Bad Batch. No, I think that like like just in where it's in the timeline though, it is a bigger risk to have them live, because then on the timeline we're like, oh, but where's Hunter now? In episode 5 or episode 4 or whatever. What's Omega up to? Now that she's out in the universe doing whatever. So I think that actually the riskier move is to have them live, because now the writers have to consider,
Right.
okay, well, we have to explain what's going on with them later on now.
But they solved that issue, like with the epilogue. Like they not
That's
an
true.
issue, but
Yeah.
they solved that with the epilogue, which I thought it was all winding down. I thought it was going to end with them all sitting there together, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was feeling really happy. I was feeling good, but I wanted a little bit more from like the last moment than them just sitting down. And so then when it cuts out, comes back in, and we see Omega, like an older, like a teenage Omega, I guess, probably like teenage Omega, older teenage Omega, like the older Hunter, and like no Crosshair, no Wrecker, and she's trying to sneak off and join the rebellion. And it to me, that was like the perfect way to end it, like the perfect way to end it, and not something I would have thought was going to happen. Like, I didn't think they would go that route. Like I didn't think that we were going to get like an epilogue of any kind involving them, other than maybe if it was like teasing some other show or something. But this was its own thing. It got a great arc for Hunter, because Hunter's still the leader of the group, and he still feels like he's the ultimate father, bigger brother to Omega, and he's the one that knows she's gonna like try to sneak off. And I thought that was just a great ending. Brian, what did you think of the epilogue?
Yeah, no, I loved it. To me, it felt very natural with her wanting to just keep fighting, because Omega has always been the fighter. She's always been that one that, and almost annoyingly so. I think I've said that before, talking about this last season. She's always been the one. It's like, let's do it. Let's go get them, and so, because it almost had that kind of naivety to it. You know what I mean? And
right.
So it just seems natural for her, there's this giant rebellion fighting the Empire, that she would want to go be a part of it. And I think it matches her character perfect. I think her having that moment with Hunter there at the end, when she turns, the lights on and she sees him sitting there, and and then smiles like, okay, yeah, I guess I couldn't get away, and I thought it was a really great moment, especially seeing, like dad bod Hunter, like in his sweater, you know what I mean? Just like a little bit of a beer gut with the beard and everything. And I'm just like, yes, dude, that's totally like a dad at Christmas. That's exactly what he reminded me of.
Well, and you love it too, because that they've just been chilling, like they've been enjoying their living life.
Yeah. So I thought it was a really, really nice epilogue. And I was about to back out of it too whenever it faded to black, when it showed them all sitting there, and I was already waiting for the the blue letters to pop up for the credits, and then it faded back in. Oh, okay. Well, hang on a second. And no, it was a great way to end it. Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense, because the Bad Batch are exiting their fight, in the Clone Wars. But there's no way, like you said, Omega's always been this fighter, but she has a very personal connection to the Empire's tyranny. I mean, the Bad Batch do, just from the standpoint of the Empire trying to, hurt Omega, but they rescued Omega. They solved that threat. So to them, like, the mission is over. Like we're finally free. We're finally done. But she was, a captive of the Empire. She saw what they were doing with other kids. She saw what was happening behind the scenes with the clones. And it makes perfect sense that she's not going to be able to just sit around Pabu, being a fisherman and villager for forever. There's just no way that she was going to do that. And for her to go be a pilot too, and she fixes Tech's goggles at the end because Tech taught her how to fly. It took me back to season 2 with her pilot lessons on Pabu, and it was just a perfect, a perfect little circle arc for her to go join the rebellion, where I'm sure that she lives and is perfectly happy. In the New Republic era, she survived the Galactic Civil War. Yes,
I'm sure she wasn't visiting a dignitary on Alderaan or anything. When the Death Star came in, I'm sure she wasn't there talking to Bail Organa about anything.
And the best part is we don't know the timeline on when she's joining the rebellion, how old she is at that time. So ultimately they can have her jump in whenever, really. It could be after the Death Star blows up. It could be before.
Oh man, if I was guessing, I'd say 10 years have passed. Because how old was Omega during this show? 8, 9, 10 years old?
9, 10, maybe.
Something like that.
So 9, 10, 11, 12.
By season 3, I'd say 11, 10-ish around there.
Yeah. So I would say
she looks like 19,
10 years
20,
had passed.
Yeah.
So
she looked like about 20.
Yeah, and so
in the epilogue,
it seems like it'd be right around the time of Solo, around Obi-Wan Kenobi. Around that time, I feel like is when that's just kind of what I kind of pictured it as. So, because that's right about the time that rebellion is really starting to become organized and become what it is, And it's got to be late enough that people out in the galaxy, especially somebody on Pabu, is getting word that there's a rebellion.
True.
You know what I mean? It's got to be a big enough deal that she's hearing about it. I want to go fight, And
you have to think too. Echo probably comes and visits every once in a while, and he's probably in the thick of things. He's probably in the thick of things with
Rex.
And Rex, we know, is probably secluded at this point, but he's probably back in the fight too with the Ezra. With Ezra and everything, we don't know what the timeline is. Rex might be back at the forefront, so I would assume that she's pretty aware of what's going on. So let's break down. I know that we all have a few nitpicks, maybe here or there, about the finale, but let's go ahead and break it down. Let's talk about first. Let's maybe focus on Omega and talk about how Omega essentially became the hunter of her group. She's the hunter of the group and leading the kids with her little toothpick basically into the Zillo Beast chambers and everything with the Zillo Beast. So let's just talk about the escape scene, the kids taking out the doctor, and the Zillo Beast itself. How do we feel about that? That was a pretty fun time. Really random for the Zillo Beast just to come right back in all this time later. It was very random, they introduced it last episode and back in, but it was fun. It was fun watching it destroy some things, and Echo being Omega, whenever they're outside and Hunter and everyone's is that Echo or Omega? Someone says Omega.
Yeah.
It's so good. So what did you guys think about all of the destruction that the Zillo Beast caused and Omega's role in all of this with the kids?
I appreciate Omega and her connection, her running theme of her connection to animals and to nature. That's always really cool, and we've seen that with Batcher, the Hound, and now with the Zillo Beast.
Not
but
Kesha,
no.
Brian.
I know. I just learned that tonight. I thought her name was Ketcha.
What? Oh, the Hound.
This whole time every time I've ever heard, we were talking about, we were recording an episode of the Timeline Show, and we were talking about cats and dogs, and he's talking, bringing up this dog, and I'm like, oh, what about Ketcha? And he's like, huh?
I'm like, who is Ketcha? And he's
Ketcha.
Like, Bad Batch. And I'm like, Batcher? And he goes, no, it's Ketcha. I was like, what is going on?
I'm half deaf. All I hear in this ear is dee. So and she's got a really strong accent in my defense.
Subtitles,
in my
Brian.
defense. So I don't use subtitles. I can't do subtitles.
I don't do subtitles either.
I can't hear without
I was
them.
amazed that I could go watch Godzilla -1. It was, and that was the rare occurrence where I could do it. I just can't do it.
I can't watch anything without subtitles unless it's Survivor.
Oh, and I can't. I spend too much time reading.
Yeah,
because my brain goes to trying to, for some reason, make sure that the subtitles match what's being said, and so I will sit there and watch the subtitles as they go instead of watching the TV, whatever.
Well, for me, I try to focus on a person's face
Yeah.
And like, you know, if I'm looking down to read the subtitles, I can't actually watch the facial performance very much. So that's why I don't do subtitles.
Yeah.
But
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But
Jay,
yeah,
you were
no, I
saying
always thought
about
his name was Katja. Sorry.
Jay, you were talking about Omega's connection with animals, how you really appreciated that, you know, all of that. Granted, this wasn't really a connection with nature or animals. It's more of a, like, you know, oh, I'm just gonna let this thing loose because this thing's gonna go crazy on some poor stormtroopers. The best part is whenever they're like, oh, and it just eats one of them, steps on the other.
Dude, those poor stormtroopers were just minding their own business, like doing guard duty, like good soldiers do, right? They were just guarding. Oh, we're gonna have an easy shift tonight, and then a giant Zillo beast busts through this door and just, I cracked up laughing. And am I the only one that thought it was funny? Like when the Zillo beast is getting ready to attack everybody's like, rah! And then it just instantly cuts to a silent scene of them walking into the vault.
Yeah, no, it was an abrupt cut where I was kind of disorientated. I was like,
yeah.
Did I hear something on my remote? Yeah.
There was a few abrupt cuts because we had like when Crosshair's like hand was about to get chopped off, like, you know, they cut off of that real quick, which makes some sense. It's the kid's animated show. You're not going to show his hand.
Figured as much.
At the same time, some people have said that they've shown some interesting things in Clone Wars, and
they showed that one clone get ran through with that sword thing and later on in the same episode. So why couldn't we watch the hand get cut off? Like
I was just thinking of like Jaime Lannister, Game of Thrones, like that's what I was thinking of that. I'm like, oh man, we're about to see the animated version of that because that was bonkers. Jay, I want to know. There's been a lot of, I don't know, criticism, but discussion about the X2 like Trooper Force and how some people feel like they didn't really make as big of a deal out of them as they maybe had been painting them out to be. To me, they felt like a cool like shadow mirror squad to the batch. Yeah. And I felt fine with that's how they were being used because it looked like, to me, it was just kind of their main point was like they're deadly, but they're just representative of what could happen to the Bad Batch if they, you know, are, you know, succumb to Hemlock's, what's he call it? Just whatever, his brainwashing. Yeah, experiments. So what did you think of the X2 Troopers?
No, I think I wanted more of them.
Okay.
I actually like wanted to see like when they appeared on screen and when, you know, they were doing combat, I was like, why didn't we see these guys earlier?
Like the others that were there too, because we only saw the one like throughout. Okay,
we saw the sniper guy in like episode 7 or 8, you know, and he was cool. And then, you know, we were all like, who is this guy? Now that we kind of like have the full picture where it's like, oh, he's part of a group of clones or a squad that is like the bizarro version of the Bad Batch. That's a great idea.
When that guy came out with like the twin blades.
Yeah, or like
the favorite. I loved that guy.
That's pretty cool.
The bolo guy, you know, like the guy throwing the ball and chain. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, the dual sword guy. I was like, these are cool variants. You know, that would have been great to see in other action sequences.
Right.
So I get why they did it the way they did it, but it's like, okay, I kind of wanted more.
I get that. It felt very like brief, and there's all these cool variant clones, and then they're gone, they're dead.
Yes.
Ryan, what did you think? About the same?
I thought they were all the one with the swords. I really wanted more, and because like part of me was thinking, like while we were watching it, my wife turned to me and she was like, you know, when he opens the pods and you see like the back of like the evil Wrecker's head, right, and like see the helmet come down all Vader like onto it. We were sitting there thinking, are they like gonna be like force sensitive like clone operatives, because they were talking about the whole midichlorians thing and everything like that, and he had these 4 like specially tucked away like for a rainy day. And so I was like, you know, I don't know what's going on with these guys. And so when they popped up and that one had those 2 swords, I was like, is this like some weird like Ventress thing? Like, is this like some weird twisted copy of a copy of Ventress? Like, what is this? And then as we went further and further, and they just turned out to be nobodies, I was like, okay, well, I would still like to see more of them. I thought they were
Right.
awesome. And I had the same feeling with them as I did with the Bad Batch and Clone Wars when they were first introduced. And I was like, I like these guys. I want some more of them. And that's how I felt about these guys until I watched Wrecker literally shove one of their heads through a wall. And I was like, well, he ain't coming back. So
Man,
no,
they
I thought
really
were
wanted to
freaking
make
cool.
you think Wrecker was going to
Dude,
bite it there for a little bit.
they
He just
were-
kept, he was like, I don't know. It felt like he's like the guy on your squad or like the boss. You're fighting, just keeps getting beaten up and
Yeah.
gashes all in his armor.
Oh,
and
I'm
he
fine.
I'm still chugging along. So this is something I want to talk about too. There's like these little pockets, these little moments that everyone has, and Echo and Omega don't even hesitate to go back for the others, and they have the clones. When they break out the clones, and the clones pretty much instantaneously agree for one last fight. And it was, we're gonna go one last mission. We're gonna help you, and that was I think just a wonderful moment for the clones. But let's flip the script and talk about Admiral Rampart getting detonated
This
to death.
nutsack.
This loser, absolute.
This yam bag.
This person,
guy.
one of my this fun person on Survivor this season would say, "This little hoe bag," like that's what she would say. That's freaking Rampart, and Nala say just having her drop the mic moment, but it very subtly, because she just kind of says things so quietly. My research will not fall in the hands of you or the Empire. Boom. And then it's like boom. What do we think of how she dropped the bomb there? Jay?
I think it was appropriate that she was the one that did that. Sorry.
Okay.
No,
No,
go ahead,
you're
Ryan.
good,
Go.
No, I think it was appropriate that she was the one that did that. And like I remember when he started following her, when she decided to go that direction, to get to the lab and stopped and picked up the thermal detonator. At that point I had a feeling she wasn't coming out of it alive. And when he started following, picked up the blaster, I was like, this nutsack, dude, for the love of God, and I was like, please tell me that he just gets baby back ribbed barbecued, like please. And I got it. It was so good. But
I want my baby back.
yeah. But I love how she like dead man switched it because she knew it was coming, know. And so when she dead man switched the thermal detonator, the look on his face that that just, for some reason, like when I watch movies and TV shows, I love it when people get that look on their face, like when they know they're already dead and they're not, like they're not yet. And he knew it at that moment that it was over because he was so cocky. Like I was just sitting there like, don't get cocky, don't get cocky.
There was a great moment. I love Echo. I love Wrecker. They're amazing, clones. But it did feel right that it was just Crosshair and Hunter doing the final moment of saving for Omega. And that whole scene, they trust her because of her training and who she is to do what she needs to do. And she trusts and Hunter trusts Crosshair to make the shot. They trust, and I thought that was a great moment. And then afterwards, she gives Crosshair the hug first, and then gives Hunter the hug first. I thought it was just a great closing moment. How did we feel? I was surprised, and I did not think I would have such a visceral hype reaction to Hemlock getting killed. Like I really didn't. I thought that I would be like, all right, yep, he's dead. The way that it all happened with him, holding the blaster to Omega's head in the rain, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you do not mess with like our girl like that. And when he gets blasted, and I actually did at home. I watched it at like 6 a.m. this morning before school, but I was like, yes, I say like 6 a.m. Like that's legitimate because I was not having one of these freaking kids at school spoiling Bad Batch for me. Like I'm not having, and that happens every once in a while. Like someone might spoil, but I did give a big fist pump when he got what was coming to him. What about you guys? Did you have any sort of like big reaction when Hemlock finally, got his?
It was super satisfying. I actually really liked Hemlock, and to be honest, if they kept him alive and used him more, I would have been like, oh yeah, absolutely, he's great. But like you, I mean, it felt like it was a very juicy death. and
juicy.
And it felt like I don't know, like if you guys played Call of Duty or like are big Call of Duty fans, but it felt like at the end of like Call of Duty, like Modern Warfare 2 or 3, like when you finally get the big bad guy at the very end, like a satisfying like General Shepard or Makarov death. That's another big video game reference.
I think of like when you're doing like Mortal Kombat or something, and you nail the fatality sequence. So you've already killed the guy that you're playing against, but they have to watch the whole extra over the top fatality, and you're just like, oh yeah, let's go.
No, but Hemlock didn't. He the thing is, like, he put up a good fight till the very end. I give the man credit.
What a loser. Gosh,
what a wiener.
What a loser. So a few things. These are more like just a few topical things. Project Necromancer. Let's talk about Project Necromancer for a little bit, because Manslayer brought this up. If you want to put that comment back up, Brian, about Project Necromancer. This was a talking point in our Discord chat. This was a talking point online. I am sure I've kind of avoided the discourse for the most part, just because I wanted to be just completely fresh coming into our conversation. This has been an interesting talking point. There's a camp, I think, that feels really passionate about the fact that they've dropped Project Necromancer here. A big thing about it. They did a big part about it in, Mando. They had the little scene where he mentions it in the Shadow Council. And I think a lot of people are like, why can't we just come out and say, like, Project Necromancer is about cloning Palpatine, is about bringing the Emperor, like, to, like, the state of immortality and, being able to replicate Force-sensitive beings and clone Force-sensitive beings. A lot of people are like, why can't we just spell it out, say it? Why are we hinting at it, playing this weird long game? I get that. I'm kind of on the other side. If you are aware of what Project Necromancer is, or if you're watching Bad Batch and you don't know what it is, does it really matter? Like, does it really matter? Because Project Necromancer, for those of us who are aware of all the intricacies of canon, we know what it is. Like, we know. I don't need them to tell me what it is or see a scene played out where they just do an exposition dump. Like, I know what it is. And if I don't really know what Project Necromancer is, maybe I haven't watched Mando and I'm not making that connection with Palpatine, just by Palpatine being in the show and understanding what the word necromancer is, if I'm learning what that is, like, I think just having Palpatine in the show gives credit to it and credence to it being a really big deal. And then you can put the pieces together of the puzzle. I get the fandom wanting kind of them to be very clear on that and just let us know. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't need an exposition dump here. I think it makes sense to just let us kind of be even more curious about it. I don't think we're meant to know everything about Project Necromancer. I think there is some level of ambiguity that is needed here, because I kind of like that there is some ambiguity about Palpatine as a character. I think that's what makes him so compelling too, is we don't always know his secrets and his inner workings and all of his little plans and how he goes about them. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think about that discourse in response to kind of what I said, but what you have been thinking, as a whole. Brian, you have any thoughts?
It's so chronologically on the timeline, this is the first time that we've heard Tarkin say anything about Project Stardust also. And
he mentioned it briefly in season 2.
Well, see, but that's what I'm saying, because like,
oh, you mean in just the Bad Batch?
Yeah, in the Bad Batch in general, because that, granted, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, you see the Death Star. You see, right. But if you're watching it, if you've never seen Star Wars before and you're watching it chronologically, you don't know that that's the Death Star. You don't know what the Death Star can do. You don't even know what it is. And when you start hearing about Project Stardust, it's like, well, what's that? And that's not necessarily something we needed an explanation to then either, And so moving forward, we needed to know when it became a problem. And when it became a problem, that's when everybody started to do something about it. Same thing with Project Necromancer. Nobody knew anything about it until it was a problem. And then everybody's like, well, great, now we have this problem we have to deal with. And
somehow Palpatine
somehow. You know, because we're still sitting here out here going, somehow the Empire built this giant space station the size of a moon, and then they built another one a year and a half later. Like, there's like we're not sitting here like, how'd they do that, you know? So I'm with you. I say let it ride, and you know, anytime I get a mention of it, I'm gonna freak out and just love it, because we know where it ends up.
Right.
We know where that story ends up going. But once in a while, getting some little details in between, that's like a little treat. Just, you know, just reveal a little bit more of it. I don't need to know all of it. I don't need to know what Yoda's species is. You know, I don't need to know what, you know, there's some things you just don't need. You don't have to know, you know, and I think this is one of them. I think because Rampart read that whole file about Project Necromancer, and then he was like, well, this has been very enlightening, and he knows everything about it and then dies. Like, I don't know if I want to know everything about it, because like everybody who's found something out about Project Necromancer has been offed, basically. And so
you find out what Project Necromancer is, your Disney Plus subscription is permanently canceled.
That's it.
That's the real life punishment.
Yep. That's exactly it.
So, and Manslayer says the thing is that it stayed as a tease after so long, waiting after the Rise of Skywalker. Something more substantial was expected. What more substantial could we have? In my opinion, we know the end game. We know what ultimately happens. We know he doesn't really ever fully succeed with Project Necromancer, because it takes the power of the dyad for him to really fully come back. So what more powerful and kind of bigger, I guess, substantial thing could we have than we have this kid in Omega who represents the key to this project, and that key is wiped clean. Like this, the Empire will never know about like what her role really is, and she's free, and the family staying together and saving this one clone, this one kid, actually is what deters the Empire, the Emperor, for decades from actually being able to fully come back. I think that's pretty substantial to me, and I don't need that spelled out, because Palpatine being in the show is enough. The references to the Empire is enough. Knowing that we're cloning is enough for me. I could put those pieces together. Jay, we'll throw it to you.
No, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I think even just the little clip from either like the third episode in the season where Emperor walks in, you have the Sith runes on the ground, and he's looking at what we can make out is his clone. That was enough for me. So, you know, I think that I see why people can be a little bit upset, because you know, like, and I've said this before, I think even on the show, where it's like, well, it feels like we've been kind of led along for a while. Yeah, for a while, you know, when discussing like this project. I'm okay with it for now, but I think, like, you know, like Brian said, you know, I think it's not a problem for me yet. And I kind of like, I think soon though, like they will have to explain it a little bit more, like be a little bit more explicit with it as we get closer even to like the Mandalorian and Grogu movie.
I don't think Project why? Like, why do they need to explain it? Like, I don't think Project Necromancer is going to have a large role, maybe in the Mando movie, unless we're going to go back to that.
Oh, really? Look at what we've got so far, though. You know, we're building towards this, you know, Heir to the Empire movie that Dave Filoni is going to be doing with Thrawn and all this other stuff. Thrawn is talking to the Night Sisters about bringing people back from the dead and all this necromagic and everything like that. And he's wanting to come back and reestablish the Empire. I think he's going to end up using, because, you know, we've had Project Necromancer touched on with Mandalorian. We've seen the clones in the vats. You know, we've seen all this other stuff. I think Thrawn's coming. I think this is all going to lead to that eventually. I think that's the end game, is that Heir to the Empire, quote unquote, movie that's coming. That I think Thrawn's going to make a play to bring Palpatine back then and fail. To the point where then we got to get on to episode 9 where he actually does come back. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's why Thrawn is so interested in Dathomir and why he's interested in the Night Sister magic and all that also. I just, that's just me though. I don't know if that's That's
I'm
just
with you.
kind of how I'm connecting the dots at this point, because I think, like you said, Jay, I think we are going to get an end game eventually with that, but I think it's still years down the road. I think we're in the middle of this journey finding out exactly what it is, and I think Thrawn is going to be that whole movie is going to be the conduit to which they finally answer all that stuff, and then it just fails and blows up in their face miserably.
I'm confused.
Okay.
Like, what do we need to know what Project Necromancer is? Like, don't we know exactly what Project Necromancer is?
I think
we
for
know
me,
that
like,
it's Palpatine's goal of being able to
right,
replicate a force-sensitive, like, being of his own. Like,
but I think for me, like, I want to know how it also connects to Snoke, and how it also is going to ultimately work to where it. Because right now, you know, we see Project Necromancer in a state where it's not operational.
It's not operational in Rise of Skywalker either.
Is it?
He's literally like they talk about like, in the visual guides too. Like, he's literally hooked up to a machine, constantly having his acolytes, you know, pumping fluids into keep him going, and it's partially working. It's not fully operational because it took the power of the dyad.
What about
being
Snoke?
Unseen for generations for him to actually get off the machine and walk around. Like, otherwise he's literally floating around on this machine.
But
like,
how can we sit here and make fun of Poe Dameron saying somehow Palpatine returned? Like, you're not going to give an explanation, and then they're slowly giving us this explanation. We're like, we don't need to know. Like,
they did give us the explanation.
Both,
there's Project Necromancer. And I took it. I don't have a problem with the Palpatine returned. I was like, okay, Palp's got plans. He has got plans. Okay, I'll roll.
Yeah.
Like, I'll roll with it. Just like when Obi-Wan said, yeah, I fought in the Clone Wars with your father. And then we had a whole thing. And I'm like, okay, there was a giant war.
But see, that's the other thing too. We didn't know anything about the Clone Wars either.
And that was why was that. I don't think that was a big problem.
That wasn't a big problem for anybody. And
so why is this?
That was. I get where you're coming from. I totally get where you're coming from. I love, just because I didn't need to know what the Clone Wars was doesn't mean I did not enjoy the shit out of the Clone Wars series. You know what I mean? So we didn't have to have the whole series explaining everything that happened during Clone Wars, but I'm glad we got it because it was some really good stuff. And I'm interested in that. I'm interested in the whole, you know, life beyond death thing, you know?
Right.
And so, like, bring it on. I want to see how it was done. It is as morbid and as dark as it can get.
Yeah,
here's
bring
the problem.
It on.
Here's my problem. I don't want an Heir to the Empire movie or a Mando and Grogu movie to the main premise of this movie is establishing like a project or something that I know what already happens. Like, if we're gonna make movies that aren't in this, if we're gonna make movies that aren't in the saga, like, this is not Star Wars episode whatever. This is a different thing. Like, I want this movie. We spent so long with these characters, like in Ahsoka, we're having these Mando. Can we just tell a story about these characters and a story that matters for them? I don't want a big movie that ties to Palpatine as the end all be all and how we have to get to that point. We've done that for 9 films. We've done that for 9 films.
No.
Why can't
Sorry,
Thrawn?
Tyler. I think Brian and I kind of are.
But why do we've had 9 films about defeating Palpatine at the end of the day?
That's what everything in Star Wars like. So
and it shouldn't
like
be.
Project Necromancer though obviously never worked until like finally somewhere like in episode 9 where they were finally able to do it with the Force. It was never going to work.
And
it's like it's destined to fail over and over and over again. And we
so why
know
do we
that.
need to watch that again?
But we know that. But Thrawn doesn't know that, and nobody else knows that. They still.
Why do we think
look at
that
the
Thrawn
aftermath
knows
novels.
about Project Necromancer?
The aftermath novels. They were trying to bring Palpatine back on Jakku by throwing these artifacts down this into the core of Jakku. Like everything, like Project Cinder, Operation Cinder was like Palpatine's like. It was like
if they make 2 movies about where the main premise of the movie is about stopping Project Necromancer, it's a waste of 2 Star Wars films.
But I don't think it's going to be about that. I just think Thrawn's going to be in the middle of that. And they're going to be like, we need to stop Thrawn. We don't know what he's doing, but we need to stop him. And he's trying to, behind the scenes, bring Palps back and reestablish that empire that he left in Rebels and try to get that back. I I see, because he's talking so much. He's already figured out how to use the Night Sisters to bring people back from the dead. He's done it with stormtroopers.
So have him use that for his own end, like in his own means.
But his own end may be to bring Palpatine back. I don't think
I know.
wants to rule.
I understand that is a possibility. I just don't understand why. Like, we have this movie. It's fantastic. Like, the idea. Like, it's called these sequel movies. We build up to Palpatine coming back. It's great. If we're going to have a quote unquote new era of Star Wars films, is what they've kind of talked about. Like, it's like this clean slate of Star Wars films going past, present, future. Present is in like the Mando timeline. If the end all be all of those movies with Mando and Heir to the Empire is just to serve as, oh, this is how Project Necromancer failed again. What are we like? What are we doing here? It feels lazy to me when I would rather us do an arc where it's like Thrawn is centered around things that are important to Thrawn. And I don't need to see side quest missions of him talking about how to get Palps back. Why can't Thrawn himself and the formidable Grand Admiral that he is with his army of mutants, why can't those guys be a big enough threat that the New Republic has to stop it? And it's about stopping him instead of bringing Palpatine into this whole thing again. I'm okay with name drops like Project Necromancer was talked about with the Shadow Council. Like, that's great. Like, maybe there's some nuggets.
But that tells me they're still working on it, though. That tells me they are still trying.
Which I'm fine if that's part of the story. I don't want that to be the main focus of the villain. And then they're like, we got to stop him from bringing Palpatine back. Like, no, because we see this in the sequels. We take down the Emperor in the originals, and the Emperor rises to power in the prequels. I'm the biggest Palpatine fan in the world. But at some point, Star Wars has to understand that we need to move on to new villains. And Mando and Grogu has done so much legwork to build this relationship with these two characters. They finalized the Mando arc. They could literally do anything in this movie with any sort of villains. And if you're going to tell me we're going to go back to Grogu being on the run from cloners again, it felt like we finished that 3-season arc. And now we're just going to retread back to season 1. It feels like a regression.
I feel like that's what it was the same exact thing they were doing with Omega. Cloners were trying to catch Omega the whole time, but we liked that story just fine. Like, I just, when Thrawn is getting ready to come back to the Star Wars galaxy, he's like, full the Empire. Like, it's not about him. It's about the Empire in general. And with him, with Paleon talking to Gideon and Mando about Project Necromancer and everything, that tells me that the Shadow Council is still focused on it, still trying to bring Palpatine back. Whether we like it or not, I'm sure the New Republic doesn't like the fact they're still working on it. So that's just, what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, and it just blows up in your face every time like a Scooby-Doo villain. At this point, the remnant of the Imperials are just desperate, and they're grasping at anything they can get to keep that power from the New Republic. And if it means bringing Palpatine back, then by all means, let's bring him back. They tried it in the Aftermath novels with the whole battle. That's what the whole Battle of Jakku was about. Was they were down on the planet trying to bring Palpatine back. And so I think it's one of those things that's just destined to fail over and over again. Yeah. And I think Thrawn is the one that is the most well equipped to make it happen, especially with, like his brains and his connection with the Night Sisters and all of that. I think he's the one that's most well equipped to do it. And if he can't do it, nobody can. And so I think if he fails at it, and this is the Imperial Remnant literally getting wiped out, because there's no more Empire after this, it's First Order moving on from that point on. I think he goes down in a blaze of glory, and I think Project Necromancer, I think that's the end you're going to hear of that. And then the whole Exegol thing is going to kick off.
If Palpatine's the main focus, and word of that, we find that out, then that means that Luke, Leia, like Han, like they have to be like a primary focal point of this movie, because they're not going to sit back and let Palpatine come back.
They probably unless they don't know about it.
And if they are a focal point of this movie has no business being made. Has no business being made.
If they don't know that's what the plan is, if all they're seeing is, oh my God, that's Grand Admiral Thrawn, he's got a crap load of Star Destroyers and a bunch of dead stormtroopers fighting for him, we need to take that out. That's the Imperial Remnant. That is the last, that's the thing we fought against in the war. That is the last vision visual, like that's the last piece of our enemy. We have to kill that. They don't care what they're doing. Maybe Thrawn is just trying to do it on a Star Destroyer or somewhere else, and nobody else knows about it. You know, because think about it. Nobody knew Palpatine. There was even a chance he could be alive in Episode 9. Leia had no inkling that there could have been a Palpatine in Episode 9. Nobody had any idea. Luke had no idea that the Emperor could still be out there, and so that means they never found out about it. He was
looking for Exegol. He knew something was up. I think.
Well, he did. He was looking for Exegol, but he didn't know it was Palps. Like he didn't know that there was any chance in hell that he was still even in the picture, and so. They even if that is what they're doing, they can't find out about it in this era.
Maybe not. He knew Rey was a Palpatine
later on. After he died.
But he said, like, you're a Palpatine.
I'm sure he found out about it after he died, though.
Well, Leia knows.
Knew, though.
So if Leia knows, like,
that's a good point too. Because he did say Leia knew that who she was. That's
the Heir to the Empire movie is the one that I think.
You be careful what you're getting ready to say.
I'm just saying,
I'm most excited for.
Personally, I'm least excited for, just because I'm worried about them doing the exact things that you're saying that they should do. I think that if they do this whole, like, Palpatine's kind of the big ultimate threat in this movie, and Luke, Leia, Han, throw Chewie in there, like, and they're like a main focal point in this movie. It to me, it feels like a cheap knockoff of a saga film. Like, we've spent so much time with Mando Grogu. We're introducing Ahsoka into this. We have Hera. We have Sabine. We have so many characters in this world of Disney Plus that we have invested, by the time this movie comes out, nearly, like, probably close to a decade in. And we're going to ignore those characters having a climactic arc, like, finish in film, to bring in characters that we have fleshed out their stories in multitudes of ways, and we are so familiar with them. But because we are too afraid to tell a story that doesn't feature the big three, we have to do this. Like, to me, that feels like a disservice to all of the Disney Plus projects that they've done so far. And I don't think I'm okay if they're in the movie. I know they're going to be in the movie. I know we're going to get the stupid CGI, like, face, everything.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to.
Probably.
I just hope that it's, like, quick.
Yeah.
Like, we see it maybe for a second. I'm worried it's going to be like, and I think if Palpatine is, you know, the power of Palpatine's in there, like, they're going to want to build this up. It's going to turn into, I'm worried this movie will turn into just a nostalgia fest for people.
Then maybe
that's what I'm afraid of.
Maybe this is something then where Leia knows about it through her connections or whatever, but doesn't want to tell Luke, doesn't want to tell Han, kind of keeps that close to the chest, you know, especially considering her connection with Vader that nobody else knows at this point, you know, and so maybe that's how she knew about it, and nobody else really found out because they were able to stop it. So she's like, why tell anybody if we were able to stop? I don't know. I kind of wish Thrawn would have his own. I kind of wish Thrawn would have his own plan. Like, I kind of just want Thrawn to be big brained enough to, like, have his own plan. He's like, Palpatine is gone. He doesn't know about Project Necromancer. Maybe, and then Shadow Council and him get together. He hears about it, and maybe he's like, calculation wise, it doesn't make sense for us to do this. Like, let's go this other route. And I would like for him. But then why focus on it as much as they have, like with Bad
Batch
and stuff?
Also, though, with the threat of Palpatine and this happening, like they think they kill Palpatine the first time in Return of the Jedi, and it's all gone. If we have another movie where it's like, oh, like now like they're fighting this and Palpatine might come back, they stop it again, and then we know go to the sequels, because it feels like when the First Order comes, it was born out of the ashes of the Empire.
Yeah.
But they pretty much firmly are like, well, the Empire's gone. But like a few of these little pockets basically remain. So I would like the story to be about Thrawn building up that remnant, doing the Night Sister stuff. And it's like when he's defeated, they're like, finally, we've destroyed the last of the Empire. And now we are free forever. It's all good and dandy. And then for me, it makes more sense that Palpatine's able to come back then, because it's like they've been in the clear for so long. But good thing is, because this probably won't come out until like 2027,
if I'm
2028, 2029. Like, we have a good 3 or 4 years to yell about this some more.
Yeah,
that's the good thing. That's the fun part. And we have
you.
a whole Ray movie before then too.
Ugh.
Trent, we talked about Bad Batch for like 30 minutes. Where were you? It was like literally like at the 30-minute mark to an hour and 5 minutes. We talked about Bad Batch. What are you talking about? Like, where did you go for 35
we
minutes?
derailed. It's my fault. I'm really good at derailing everything. It's my fault.
I brought up Project Necromancer from Bad Batch, and then we went into the whole thing, and we're now at an hour 25. We got to cut off. But Trent, man, what was going on? You fall asleep for a while, what's going on here? Like, I swear we talked about Bad Batch for 35, almost 40, damn near 40 minutes.
We did, yeah.
Like he had to have tuned out like right before Bad, and he comes back,
and then comes back
like,
for Necromancer.
He's like, what the hell? Like, oh shit, we're talking about Phantom Menace, Trent. Thank you very much, Trent. Appreciate you, Trent. You can catch up later. It's all good. Then you can listen to me and Brian yell about Palpatine for a little while. That's
yes, we need a whole video of just this.
Oh, man. You can join us every single Thursday night here around 10 p.m. Eastern time. Talking about Star Wars, talking about all sorts of things, all good stuff. Check it out every Thursday night here on Star Wars Newsnet Live. You can check out the Timeline Show. Brian's done. You can check out the Star Wars Newsnet Timeline Show. Brian and I go through a new piece of canon every single Monday night. And we just recorded a few episodes today. Brian, take it away. Where can we find you?
You guys can find me right here yelling at Tyler about Project Necromancer every week for the next 5 years. No, you guys can find me on the live shows every Thursday night right here on Star Wars Newsnet. You can find me on the Timeline Show with Tyler. We're recording a whole bunch of really cool episodes over the last few months talking about all the canon stuff coming from the very beginning of the timeline up. Guys, go check out my buddy Mark Tolley. He did his 7th anniversary podcast episode earlier this week. He asked me to come on, and we were talking about Bad Batch. So definitely go check that out. It's called War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. And he puts on a good show. He really does.
Okay.
And so go check that out. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be hopping on a video call with my co-host for my podcast, the Star Wars Canon Podcast, and hammering out what we're going to be doing with our show moving forward, and kind of talking about some things and whatnot. So definitely go check that out. And then also, before we go, I told my wife that I would tell you guys this joke before we left. It's a Star Wars joke. She hit me with it last night, and I felt like a complete moron. So you've got C-3PO, right? And you call him 3PO for short, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
R2-D2, you call him
R2.
R2. All right. So what do you call Luke?
Luke.
No, he's already too short for a stormtrooper. So Luke's already short for a stormtrooper. So there you go.
Great.
I promised her I would say that joke on the air. I probably butchered it, but I told you I'd say it. So there it is.
Lovely. Thanks for that.
I'm sorry. It's not my favorite Star Wars joke, but it's a good one. My favorite Star Wars joke is what's the internal temperature of a tauntaun? It's lukewarm. I love that joke. It's so great.
That was funny. Trent, I wasn't trying to pick anybody. I was just joking. All right, I was just joking. We were just having fun here on Star Wars in Life. I was just messing with you, buddy. Nothing serious. Jay, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Good Games Dude. Tomorrow, I'll be having a very special review of the game that just came out last week called Stellar Blade. Really excited for that. It's a very special review going up tomorrow, so feel free to check out that that YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. You can also find me at Utini as a writer contributor there. And you can also find me at Star Wars Newsnet, where I have a few new articles coming up, including, hopefully, I'd like to get this out on Saturday, but it will be a 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace retrospective article. So I really hope to get that out, hopefully, by Saturday.
That'd be good. I'm gonna look forward to reading the Phantom Menace review, or the Phantom Menace comic that they dropped, new anniversary one. That'll be good. I'm gonna write a review for that this weekend, so that'll be fun. Anything else before we get out of here?
I think we're good.
All right, we'll see y'all next week. We'll be talking about Tales of the Empire, all that good stuff. Until next time, for Light and Life.
Have a good night, everyone.